Hi, Paul from Contemporary Synth here. These tutorials, we look at the technical and artistic capabilities of the Roland Fantom O workstation. Today, I'm going to give you some ideas on how to grow your workflow, production, arranging, and maybe composition as you work through songs of your own. I'm especially excited that this afternoon, a friend and colleague of mine named Mireille is going to come over and help me sing the playout. I'm pretty excited about that. I will put the video of that recording in its own video, and I'll put a link to that here and at the end of this one. The song's going to be Sweet Redeemer by Steve Angrisano and Sarah Hart. I will put links to the music and their recording in the description in case you're interested in that. And finally, if you're getting value out of these recordings, please consider subscribing. I would love you to see them as they come out. I'm in an initial scene on the keyboard, and I'm going to spend most of my time in the pattern view today. The first thing you need to do from an arranging perspective is decide how you're going to set a song. And since my last one was a sea shanty and the one before that was a rap, I figured it's okay to go with a classic rock and roll kind of sound. So I'm going to start with a distorted guitar. It's very common to have, when you have a guitar or you're modeling a real instrument, is to double that track and maybe change some of the amp settings or the EQ to get a little more thickness. So I'm going to create another distorted guitar in zone 2, but I'm going to actually use a very different sound. And then what I'm going to do is pan this one to the right a bit, and then pan this one to the left a bit, and then I can set it so I hear them both and get the levels kind of the same. So that's a nice thick guitar sound. The next step is to start recording, and I need to set my tempo down to 100. I have a very hard time recording to the click track, and I know professionals can do that, but I really struggle with it. It is interesting if you listen to the song All Right Now by Free, they have the click track and they left it in the final recording for some reason, which I think is hilarious, but it sounds really good and they are right on it. I cannot do that. So if you struggle with that also, I have found it is 100 times easier to put some rhythm down first. Now the keyboard does let you turn the metronome up. It lets you change the sound and you can subdivide it so you get more beats. I still find nothing is easier than having a rhythm track. I'm going to put my rhythm in 7 and 8. You see I've selected the room kit. In zone 8, I'm going to put a rhythm pattern. In zone 7, I'm going to put some auxiliary percussion that I'm going to use to play during the intro and outro, and then to help the refrain have a little more energy and separate it from the verse. I'm going to use the pattern recorder for that. It's only one measure, and I'm going to start with a tambourine. Now, some folks will create this rapid sound like that, and that's perfectly fine. Let me offer another way to create your tambourine sound, and that is to put a strong hit on the downbeats, a lighter hit there, and then a softer hit in between, and you get a little bit of the tambourine sound. You don't quite get the swing that you would get with using your wrist, but it's better than I think it's better than the straight hit. This is a shaker, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now I'm going to show you something fantastic. If you go to the parameters, you can adjust the parameters for every drum item individually. So in this case, I'm going to take my tambourine and I'm going to pan that to the left. I'm going to take my shaker and I'm going to pan that to the right. And even more fun, you can go to the EQ, and if you turn it on, you can add some brightness to the tone. Turn it on. Add some brightness to my tambourine. Now, and then you can go back here and turn it down if you need to get your level right. And you can do that. You can add EQ, you can add compression, you can change the filter. I mean, just listen to the. So it's really powerful how you can change every sound, and you can do that on a regular drum pattern as well with a snare that you want to tighten up or cymbals where you want to adjust the sustain. Very powerful. All right, back to my pattern here, I want a little bit of a kick, and then a clap. Clap's always going 2 and 4, 2, unless you're Dua Lipa, in which case I go, but I'm not. So that's going to be, and that's all I need for my auxiliary percussion. So I can come back over here and record my guitar. So let's do that. Click. The refrain is 8 measures. It's 4 measures that repeat. So I'll do that. I will turn my grid on because this is another thing I've wrestled with, but these notes are pretty simple and I think I can do it. So let's go. probably not exactly what you would play if you were playing the guitar, but you could match that rhythm pretty easily. All right, and that's a pretty good guitar sound. Let's do the bass. It would be perfectly understandable to select an electric bass that matches the genre of the electric guitars, but I get a lot of, I like the synth basses, and I'm always able to find one that really resonates with me. So I certainly encourage you to explore if you haven't looked at those before. Now, I don't, in this particular bass, I don't like that glide, so that's just portamento, and it defaults to 48, and it's not hard to set it to something a little less. That's all I need there, and let's do bass. All right, now, one more thing I want to add is kind of a techno synth, and I'm going to put some arpeggios on here. I've got a lot of long low tones, and these are going to be short high tones that are further going to make my refrain sound different from my verse. The tone I've selected is over here. And I could play this, but I thought let's use the arpeggios. So you need to turn on the arpeggio engine over here. And there are lots of settings, and they're all great. I'm just going to use the basic here. My F, to G minor, and then E flat walk down. All right, the last thing is the rhythm pattern itself, which I alluded to before. I'm going to use the heavy 3 setting and the verse 2. Verse 2 tends to have more energy than verse 1. In this case, it just has an extra ride cymbal, which I like. The refrain is 8 measures. I'm going to do 4 and then repeat it. So 2 measures of the verse 2 and then 2 measures of fill in 2. Now you'll see if I play here, I don't get any signal, and that's because the rhythm defaults to zone 10. If you back that down to zone 8, here I am, and I'm going to play along with this. Well, really all I'm going to do is add a kick and a crash to start it, and then come back to this menu and switch to fill in 2. That sounds kind of complicated, but you'll see what I'm saying. So length is 4, rhythm sync is on, so it starts the pattern. I'm going to kick it off with the crash and then go over and switch to the fill. 2, 3, 4, 2. All right. So that's it for my refrain. Now I'm going to put in a single note to be my last note of the song, because this refrain and all these patterns will cycle forever. Now, if I hit record now, I'm going to get all of these tracks. So I need to disable them and go up here, turn off my arpeggios, and record 1 measure of my B flat chord. 2, 3, 4, out. And then 1 measure with this guitar. 2, 3, 4, out. And then the hardest part ever. And then for my percussion, I want to do a crash, but then I want to do a little tom roll. To do that, I have to turn off the quantizer, or it is going to quantize that out. So no grid on this one. 2, 4. Next is going to be my verse. Disable these guys so they don't show up in my next recording. So my verse is going to have mostly whole notes, but before I do those, I still want to put down my rhythm. This one's going to have verse 1. Now, instead of 2 measures of 2 and 2 measures of fill, because the fill here is a little more violent, I'm going to save that for the end. So I'm actually going to record 8 measures, 6 measures of verse 1, and then 2 measures of the fill. Turn on my rhythm sync and set this to 8. And I'm going to kick it off with a crash, and I'll put a snare hit and a cymbal for a light fill around measure 4. Let's go. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. Here's my little baby fill. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2. Now I can bring that in. 3, 2, 3. Here's the violent fill. You see why I didn't want to have that in the middle of the verse. Now I can go put in my guitar. Second guitar. And the bass. And that is it for the parts I need to record for this song. There's a little housekeeping I need to do, though, before I put together the actual song and the patterns themselves. So there are a couple things I need to change. First is the song is written in B flat, but Mireille says she wants to sing it in A flat. So I need to transpose everything down one whole step. You can do this through the pattern utility, modify and transpose, but that's actually going to move the notes themselves and it would be very difficult to put them back. I want to play it in B flat, but make it sound like it's in A flat. And the way you do that is you go to the menu, System, and down here in the Sound submenu is Master Key Shift. That's kind of fun. So anyway, I'm going to come down two half steps, and that will take care of that. Next is I'm going to do an instrumental at the end, or towards the end, and I'm going to use another distorted guitar for that. Nice and crunchy. Sounds a little nice and crunchy guitar there. But there's going to be a pitch bend in here where I only go up half a step, but the default bend is a whole step. So I'm going to hold down Shift and move my pitch bend wheel, and where it says 2 half steps, I'm going to change it to 1 half step. All right. Next thing I want is to change this to be a start button. So hold on Shift and press S1. I want this to be the start. I can try to find it. Remember, it happens to be 113. There it is. You could also go Shift numeric and type in 113, and there it is. And I need to change momentary to latch, or it'll stop as soon as I take my finger off the button. And the final thing I want to do is introduce the notion of using the sub out. I'm going to record our session live. And the keyboard, I typically output in 2 tracks. So I'm going to show you my mixer here. I don't normally talk a whole lot about this, but I'm using a Tascam Model 12 multi-channel recorder. I'm in channel 1. Mireille's going to be in channel 2. And right now the keyboard is in, let me put it on a more neutral tone here. Keyboard is in 3 and 4, which you can see. So it's going to play all of these together, and I'm not going to get the best mix. So how can I position myself to mix it down later when I go to combine these tones? And one way is to get 2 additional channels out of the sub out. So I'll show you. Let me go to the pad mode zone mute. So if I play my refrain, I will block everything but the drums. So they're going in here. If I go to menu, effects, edit, go to zone 7, I will shift that to the sub mix. And we do the same for the main. For zone 8. So now they're going to the submix out of these wires, and those are coming into channels 5 and 6. So if I go to another way you can look at that, if you go to Shift FX, you can see them right there. So let me turn these guys way down. If I put it back here, it's much quieter because I just dropped that level. And that just gives me a way to control the volume separately later on. Also, when you're playing live, note that the master volume over here does not change the sub. It changes these guitars. If you want to change the sub, turn everything down here. You go to Shift Mixer, change the output, and here's the sub mix there. But in this case, I'm just getting it high enough for me to record, so I can mix it later. Okay, I think that's all I need to do. Let's do these groupings quickly. The first group is going to be the intro, and I'm just going to use the guitar, one guitar, and my aux rhythm. So let's go to grouping, set, okay, rename, clear, and this is going to be in / out. And it is 4 measures. Next is going to be the whole refrain. Grouping, down one set. Okay, rename, clear, refrain. And it is going to be the 4 that we recorded, and then it loops once to give me 8 measures. Next is going to be this last note. Grouping, down one set. Okay, rename, clear. This is last. And it is 1 measure. And the last one is going to be my verse. Down one set. Okay, rename, clear, verse. And it is the 4 that we recorded. And see, the rhythm is up to 8 because we did that before. Make my song, and it starts with the intro. Then it goes verse, refrain, and then it does the outro, and then the last note. Now, if I go to my song, I want to make my last refrain play 3 times because we're going to sing it after the verse. I'm going to do my little pitch bend solo, and then we're going to sing it again. And that is the whole thing. So I hope you got something out of this, and I hope you are enjoying this keyboard as much as I am, and I hope you stick around and watch the video of us singing this song next. Thanks a lot.